It was quite obvious that the way the Germans were moving, they were going to make a hell of a war out of it. So I was ready for war. It's our country. You die for your country.
Winston Churchill made it quite clear that there was going to be a war.
I can remember saying, we've got to stop this fellow Hitler.
We were safer in the air than they were on the ground, as far as I was concerned.
It transpired that we were doing something far more important than we thought.
It was the summer of 1940, and having vanquished much of Europe, including France, Hitler had turned his attention to the one country that still stood against him. But before the Nazis could invade Britain, they would first have to conquer its skies and gain superiority over the Royal Air Force. As an RAF navigator who was shot down and captured during the first Gulf War in 1991, I know only too well about the brutal reality of war. This memorial commemorates a group of young airmen, almost 3,000 of them, who fought many years before me during the Battle of Britain. 544 would lose their lives defending our country from the Nazi scourge. As Winston Churchill so memorably said, never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. 75 years on, there are only about 30 of these men still alive today. They are the last of the few.
This is the Gaumont British News. At a moment's notice, the pilots and planes of any fighter station in Britain are ready to take the air. In a matter of seconds, the sky defenders of the United Kingdom are away on what has now become a routine job, shooting down Nazis.
I'm Tony Pickering. I was a pilot during the Battle of Britain, and I flew Hurricanes. I knew there was a war coming. We'd been told by Winston that there was a war coming, and I decided that if I was going to take part in a war, I was going to fly Spitfires or Hurricanes. I was actually attacking some German bombers, and the front gunners of these bombers blew the sump of my Hurricane away, and I caught fire. So as soon as you see flames in an aircraft when you're by yourself, you don't stay aboard. I just raised myself out of the seat, pulled the pin, and ping, I was out like a cork out of a bottle. I got a little bit scorched around the face, but not burnt. I wasn't burnt. The only thing I can remember is the comradeship and the way we were looked after by the ladies. You know, the girls, they fed us, they tucked us up in bed at night time, just like mother. When you're 19 years of age, I don't think you'd think too deeply about what's going to happen. I mean, you do think to yourself, well, there's a possibility I'll get shot down, but I might be able to jump by parachute, I might not, I might be a prisoner of war. I was quite prepared if my time had come to go.
High above London, a formation of enemy raiders is a target for anti-aircraft fire. It is not an unfamiliar sight at present, but as Royal Air Force superiority grows, as anti-aircraft fire becomes still more deadly, it will take its place as a thing of the past.
I'm Ken Wilkinson. During the war, I flew with 19 Squadron in the Battle of Britain. On 1st of September 39, I wrote myself off. I thought, you've got no chance of lasting through whatever it's going to be, because it was quite obvious that the way the Germans were moving, they were going to make a hell of a war out of it. And so I was ready for war. It's our country. You die for your country. Say war is a total war, and it certainly was in England in 1940. All the stuff that was being thrown at us, and when you think that all the thousands of citizens that were being killed by this absurd bombing, still they had to pay for it, didn't they? Yes, you lost people, friends that didn't come back. Yeah. You have to get into an attitude and to make sure that basically you're as cold as a fish. And once somebody has failed to return, that's it. Dame Fortune smiled on me and not on some of the others. I can only say that whoever it was that pooped off at me wasn't a very good marksman.
Were you lucky?
Oh, lucky as hell.
The RAF and the guns are still bringing down the German Air Force in scores. The ground is littered with planes, and the camps are filled with pilots, charming men who machine gun children.
My name is Paul Farnes, and I flew Hurricanes with 501 Squadron during the Battle of Britain. I have to admit that I did enjoy most of the Battle of Britain. It was, after all, you've got to remember that we joined the Air Force, I did, and all the other VRs did, to fly. To be able to fly several times a day, every day, in one of the finest aeroplanes going, was good. I'd gone up with the squadron, and I was on the way back, and suddenly coming towards me, I saw a Ju-88 at the same height. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, I whipped round and followed him, gave him a few bursts, and he crashed. And the CO of the station took me over in the car, and I met the pilot, and that was quite fun.
What did you say to the man that you just shot down and nearly killed? Did you shake his hand?
I tried to, but he wouldn't shake hands. We lost 20 pilots out of 60. And suddenly say, well, where's that chap who came here a couple of days ago? He didn't come back.
It sounds like a very fragile way to live your life.
It was very fragile. But strangely enough, it was a good life. I enjoyed it.
Enemy territory has been battered by bombs of the Royal Air Force. Germany has had 700 raids. Each raid has been a cog in a great machine built up to smash forever the Nazi reign of bullying and greed.
These men won the battle with skill and military strategy, but also with bravery and resolve. Coming together at the RAF Museum's Battle of Britain Hall 75 years on, these three veterans' experience of the war is one they all share.
You're young and you're enthusiastic. That was the trouble with most of our people. They were too enthusiastic. You had to be careful they didn't shoot you down.
It was a shambles, quite honestly. I mean, once you started, it was every man for himself. I mean, there were aircraft everywhere.
I remember sitting on the ground waiting to go, and I found it quite a nervous experience in actual fact until one got airborne.
The only emotion I felt was, let's get off the ground as quickly as possible. We were safer in the air than they were on the ground, as far as I was concerned.
Some people say about, the loss of some of your friends, but you didn't really have time to make friends. A chap would come and join the squadron, and he'd probably last 24 hours, 48 hours, you wouldn't see him again.
I don't think we were the sort of people to brood over it, ever. I don't think so.
You thought he'd be comrades. You thought of their wives, their girlfriends. I mean, most of those of my age were not married anyway.
Yes, it seemed foolish to be married, didn't it?
How do you look back now, 75 years?
Oh, well, yes, because it transpired that we were doing something far more important than we thought. As far as we were concerned, it was just that there were some untidy creatures from over the other side of the Channel trying to bomb England and the United Kingdom, and we didn't want them to bomb us. After all, we never asked the Germans to start this nonsense, did we?
No.
But they did.
We never asked them to come in.
We've got to stop them. And we did.
I never considered I was a great hero. I did a job which I was paid to do and which I did to the best of my ability.
I think people would rather tend to crack up the battle as though it's some incredible thing that took place, but it was just a normal war, really, if you have such a thing as a normal war.
It was another 5 years until the Nazis ultimately surrendered to the Allies and the war was over. But it was their failure to match Britain in the air in 1940 which marked a turning point in World War II. Thanks to the resilience of the British people and the skill of the Royal Air Force, it proved to be just as Churchill had predicted, our finest hour.